Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to a brand new video here today, and a very, very exciting one, because in today's video, we get our very first look at F1 Manager 2022. So recently, I got the awesome opportunity to attend a virtual PR event held by Frontier Devs all about this game. I got some exclusive looks at some gameplay, which unfortunately is not quite ready to be shared with the world, but they did kindly give me some screenshots of in-game action to show you guys. So these are the gameplay screenshots, and this is our very first ever look, apart from the kind of artwork we got last week, of course, of the Baku City circuit and some previews of the driver heads. This is our very first look at the actual gameplay, the menus that we're going to be spending so many hours in on this game. I also did get to see the actual track action and the race action, but I am not allowed to share anything from that quite yet, but I'm sure that will come sooner rather than later. This virtual event was about an hour long with the game director and producer, and we really delved into this presentation of the ins and outs of every little bit of the game. So in this first video of two today, we're going to first and foremost just kind of casually look at the screenshots, have a little discussion of what we can pick out from the screenshots themselves, and then later today I'll be uploading a second video where I'll be going through every bit of info that I was able to jot down from this presentation. So if you want to know every little nerdy detail of the ins and outs of every mechanic that so far I've been told about in this game, then look out for that second video later today. Get subscribed. But this first one, we're just going to delve into this very first look of the game, of the gameplay menus, and see what we can pick out from them. So the first screenshot we're going to look at is the home screen. So this will be where we start every bit of gameplay when this comes out later in the summer. So we've got prepare for upcoming races, manage your cars, drivers, and see your current standings in the championship. Of course, all of this is work in progress, but we've got some really neat tabs at the bottom, so this gives us a really good insight already into the different parts of the game that we'll be able to, manage and actually access. So we've got the home page, the tab, we've got inbox, so emails, that's obviously a huge part of management, in any kind of level, any kind of business, whether it be F1 or anything like that. Even though I have to deal with a lot of emails day to day. Calendar, circuits. So calendar, we're going to get an overview basically of different events, obviously the Grand Prix, but also I'm assuming events of, parts being completed, like you can see here, upcoming events. These will probably all be in the calendar. We've got circuits, so that's looking at just the calendar coming up, but maybe also data to do with the circuits. We've got the race, that's race preparation. The cars, so development of the cars, building parts and whatnot. Drivers, of course, managing that and the contracts and whatnot. Staff as well. Facilities, or HQ facilities, as I always kind of say. So things like, your wind tunnel, CFD, building those out. You've got board, so that's kind of your board of directors. So, of course, in any business, you have a board above you that will obviously set you targets usually that you need to hit in the season in any kind of business. So we're going to have to actually listen and answer to a board of directors. Finances, of course, because especially now in F1 with the cost cap, finance is a massive part of really making sure you're going to stick to that limit, but also budgeting correctly for throughout the season when you're building things. And then the standings, we've got the Australian Grand Prix in this instance, so we've had the first two races, and we've got Australia coming up in 7 days. We can see we've got $38 million left, and we are in April 1st 2022, confirming that we're in this instance managing Red Bull, who we haven't done too well in the first two races. We're fourth place in constructors behind Alpine even, and Ferrari looking very, very strong. We've got Verstappen and Sergio Perez. We've got these two little things blurred out here, so I can't recall maybe seeing that in the presentation of what they were, so there's something hidden there a little bit, maybe potentially their form, maybe going into the event potentially with car 1 and car 2. We've got time until the race, 7 days, and then we've got upcoming events. Now if we look deeper into these upcoming events, we can see in one day we've got a car part manufacturing complete. So we're building a part, which is a chassis RB22-1 manufacturing complete. So the -1 is indicating that that's the first iteration of that chassis. So you will be able to make several iterations. So as we've been accustomed to with, older management games with racing, we will be building iterations of parts and obviously trying to improve improve them as we go on. It's the same thing here with the underfloor. We've got RB22-1. So that indicates that's the first one we've made of the season. And then we've also got facility upgrades completed. We don't know quite what one we've upgraded yet, but that will be upgraded. We've done 2 of them actually, because one of them is in 3 days and the other in 6 days. And then we've got the race week calendar. And with this part of the game, where obviously we know they've told us they're going to be matching TV broadcasting styles, and I have seen that for myself, that they have really matched the TV broadcasting really well. I'm talking about proper on the actual TV style camera angles that they use, even the more cinematic ones, all available there. They've got the timing ladder on the left that looks exactly like it is on F1 TV. But with this part of the game, where obviously this part is nothing to do with the TV style, you still just get that feel of Formula 1 with things like the font, but also I just feel like the UI is very, very clean in this menu. Moving through now to the next screenshot we've been given is staff, the staff area. So we've got manage and develop your key staff and sub teams. We've got a technical chief, head of aerodynamics, race engineer 1, race engineer 2, and then the sub teams of engineering team, scouting team, and pit crew. And then we can also scout key staff from here as well. So let's delve into the kind of first, the big names here. So we've got a technical chief, head of aero, and these are all going to be real people, as you can see, real people that are there in real life, that are at these teams, or who may be engineers generally in the world of Formula 1, F2, F3, I assume potentially as well, because we know we've got F1 to F3 drivers. I assume they've maybe tried to pick out a few little engineers that are just known generally in the world of motorsport, maybe potentially, or just in the F1 sphere, to maybe go through, because you're not going to have these race engineers for the whole time. Of course, you may keep them for a couple of seasons, but eventually you may want to move on. This is quite literally Pierre Gasly's race engineer. I can recognize his face, because I've seen videos of him and Gasly talking, in footage that AlphaTauri have uploaded. So yeah, they're the actual people that work in Formula 1, which must be very cool for them as well, actually, if they ever look at this game. So we've got the technical chief. Now, that will be kind of a general overview and general influence of how he can operate the team, how he can influence the team in certain aspects. We've got the head of aero. That for sure is going to affect the direction you may go in, what expertise and bonus knowledge you can get from him. Race engineer 1 and 2, of course, are just to do with working with the driver himself, getting the most out of the driver, when you're doing car setups in practice and whatnot. I'm sure there's going to be perks and, attributes of certain engineers that may get better, more out of their drivers, basically. And then we've got the engineering, these kind of sub-teams. The engineering team, this is to do with building parts of your car, I know. So this is, you can build this team out as well. You're going to start off with a smaller number, and as you upgrade your facilities, you can actually add more engineers to the engineering sub-team, and that's going to obviously... And that's then going to help you improve things like maybe build time, getting things done quicker, or even better, building better parts, having better upgrades on the car. The same thing with the scouting sub team. You can add a few scouts to them, I think, the same thing with the scouting team. You can improve on the scouting team, and that will allow you to do more scouting simultaneously. So at the beginning, you may be only able to send off one kind of scouting mission, and that's it. Once you build that team up, you can do multiple at the same time. So I want to kind of scout, maybe a different race engineer at one time, and then also scout for a reserve driver or actual replacement for one of my first drivers. You can do that at the same time. But initially, when we boot up the game and we start our careers, depending on the team you've got, of course, because I'm sure the top teams will have a higher scouting team, but maybe the lower teams, let's say like Haas, for example. Obviously, I know they're doing very well this season so far, but in the grand scheme of things from last year to this year, they're a lower team, and they are a team on a massive tight budget. Maybe their scouting team will only allow me to do one thing at a time. So I'm going to have to wait for him to scout an engineer, then I can scout a driver. Whereas when you upgrade that, you can do it at the same time. Pit crew as well. That's another sub-team, the last sub-team, and that's just improving things like the actual pit stop themselves. So also, I think there's influence on what they want to focus on. Are they going to focus on the speed of it, or making sure they maybe don't make any mistakes or whatnot? And then we've got the scouting, the key staff, so that's going to be actually opening up the whole menu of looking down. There's a massive list in this presentation of just, F1, F2, F3 drivers, and you've got a huge list of engineers and heads of aero and technical chief that you can delve into. So there is this big world of Formula One in the game that you're going to be able to tap into to try, pull away people from other rival teams or hire ones that are out of a job at the moment, a free agent, let's say. Moving on to finances now, and even, back at the staff screenshot we saw, just really lovely looking little vistas in the menus, because there is that trap of a manager game where it can get a bit kind of, you're stuck in the menus, you're kind of just sucked into them. I know I've been the same way with previous manager games. We've seen it in other genres like Football Manager. There's a lot of menus to look at, and sometimes to some people it can be a little bit unstimulating. So I really like the fact they've got these little vistas behind the menus themselves, and just look at it. The graphics are really sick. I mean, we saw that previously with the Baku City Circuit preview graphics of the actual tracks themselves, but the graphics for these little things and the menus themselves as well, just really nice touch. The little things I think F1 fans always appreciate. Really cool. So finances anyway, this tab then, very important. We've got the season balance, so reviewing your overall financial income and spending. We've got the monthly balance, so you'll literally be able to manage and kind of micromanage month to month what we're doing. Like, oh, we're doing this one upgrade this month, maybe we need to save a bit more money for a later month. We've got the Hungarian Grand Prix coming up later in the year. Maybe we should budget for the whole season accordingly to make sure we have more budget for the coming months on the run-up to that Grand Prix, because it's a really important one. We want to bring a new aero package in, so we're going to have to manage the money that way. So that's going to be a learning curve, I think, for all of us. We're going to have to learn what's the best way to do it. And there may not be one best way, it's going to depend on what team you are. If you're Red Bull, you might have a very different strategy to a lower team in terms of the way you budget accordingly, because you've also then got to think about, remember, we know that there's going to be FI regulation changes and voting for that, and you may need to budget for research for the following season. So that's going to be very important. And the cost cap, of course, we know that is in the game, the sliding scale. So the top teams and the bottom teams are all cut at the same one, but then we've got that sliding scale of research and development. So the top teams get less CFD time, wind tunnel time, and the lower teams do, but obviously everyone's on a level playing field with the cost cap. And then you've got your sponsorships, which are going to be quite important. Obviously, in terms of making profit and getting more money, there is that cost cap, so there'll be a certain limit. But if you're a lower team, you may not even be hitting that limit yet, so you're going to need to try and find sponsors to make sure you can get that budget to hit that cost cap limit, so you can actually spend as much as Red Bull. We've now got a strategy screen here for the Bahrain Grand Prix. This is, so we're in the race, the strategy editor, and we've got strategy C, so therefore we've already had A and B, so you can make multiple strategies in this game and kind of almost quickly choose them and switch over mid-race if you feel like that strategy may be better. We've got things like the different stints here. So stint 1, we're on the soft compound tyre, going to move to the hards and then to the mediums on a 2-stop here around Bahrain. Bit of an odd one because we know from real life the hard tyre wasn't that great around Bahrain, but I'll allow it. Obviously a work in progress screenshot here, but we've got Leclerc's strategy, and you can see the tyre wear and the pace going down here as well. And we've got the pit stop window in blue. So this blue window is the lap 14 to 20 on the right hand side here. I believe this is actually even in the middle of the race itself. So in the race, you can view things and you've got kind of simplified strategies, the affecting what the driver does in terms of pushing the tires, pushing the fuel, pushing the ERS on the bottom left and right, as you may be familiar with other manager games at Motorsport. But also at the same time, you can access this more detailed menu on strategy, and on the fly, in the middle of the race, you can change the strategies around. You can look at data. So we've got current lap, the current tyres are 98% worn, the next compound, 87%. So we've used that maybe earlier on in the race weekend. We've got current pace target. So for each stint, you can set a pace target for each one. So right now we're on number 3 in yellow, so that's going to be standard, and we've got 5 different pace levels. So the middle one, 3, being the kind of, balanced of the 2, and then we go down to 1, which is conserving, and then all the way to the top, number 5, attacking. Obviously attack, wearing your tires more. The lower one, conserve, protecting the tires, and stint to stint you can decide what you want. So let's say for whatever reason we swap this to the soft compounder tire, we made the hard tire go longer. At the end, you may just want to honestly go to him, right mate, like they do in real life sometimes. Look, Charles, just go for out-and-out attack, qualifying laps, mate, right to the end. We've got the tyre wear for it. We've got a nice bit of clean air to chase after the race leader. Let's say we've made a second pit stop behind them, and you can just do that. And then, on the flip side, for this hard tyre strategy, we could have, if you wanted to stretch this to here, you could be saying, okay, for this whole stint maybe, go on conserve, but obviously you don't have to stick to it. On the fly, in the middle of the race, we've set him a general pace target, but then let's say someone's attacking him on this hard tyre stint, and we've told him to conserve tyres. On the fly then, as you would expect, you can tell him, right, okay, I think we need to pick up the pace a little bit, take a bit out of the tyres just to make sure we stay on top of him, maybe use a bit more fuel as well, and use some extra ERS modes to try and defend from him, so we can do that midway through the race. But I really like this screen. It's, I think what you'll find with all these screenshots, and generally what I've seen from this game in the hour event I had, was although everything is so nerdy and everything's so detailed, which is awesome, it's what I want to see, is what I think a lot of the hardcore F1 fans and players of this game will want to see, it's also presented in a really clean, pretty simple way that, even like someone who's not trained on it can see, okay, we've got, the lap we're starting, the compound, pace, and you can just go off the colours, the colour yellow, middle, we've got, I think the conserve one was, I think, purple, and I think attack was red, so it's very simplified, and you can start to pick it up quite quickly, you don't need to delve into the nitty-gritty, you can just see overall, okay, cool, okay, it's in yellow, we're going, in the middle, and then we go red for out and attack, and then purple conserve, so I like that, I like the vibe. I think it's somewhat inviting to more casual players to help them learn a bit more about the sport, learn a bit more about the nerdy side, and get better at the game as they go on through it. Finally, we're going to move across to these 2 different screenshots. We've got circuits, both in the circuits menu, but kind of delving into the kind of specifics. So we're going to start off with the circuit tab here. So we've got all the tracks, and when you click each circuit, you'll get things like historical data. You'll get obviously the forecast for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You've got things like track abrasion, track grip, medium to low, historical safety car chance, pit lane time loss. So these things could be quite important. Pit lane time loss, if it's 25 seconds. You're going to need to remember that. So when you're doing a strategy, and let's say on the fly, you're like, oh, should we pit him in? Is he going to be in clean air, though? Let's see what the pit stop time is like, and, where he's going to fit out into. And things like historical safety car chance, that's also important, Let's say Singapore, when we get to that, I'm sure that chance is like, what, like 75% or something like that. That will factor into maybe, do we, underfuel the car a little bit? Do we know that we can maybe afford to go on 2 sets of softs at the start of the race because we know maybe there's a high chance of a safety car, and that's how we can swap on to a harder compound later in the race potentially? And I know from what I've seen from the preview event, and I'll talk more about that in the second video, that you can delve into even more data to do with the circuit to inform what parts you design, or which ones you're going for, what attributes you're going for on designing the parts. And this second screen kind of shows that a little bit. We've got overview, details, sections. So that's little mini sectors of the circuit. Car performance, part attributes, and then more info. We've even got expected strategies, previous races there, compounds. So even if you're not informed, even if you don't know that much, you can use the expected strategies to try and inform yourself and kind of form a rough guide for what strategy you might want to do. Previous race results, historical results, and powertrain usage. So that's really cool. Even just as, as an F1 fan, that'll be cool to look at historical results at this circuit and look back at the history of Formula 1. And I think that was one point that was also said to us in the preview event, that was, with the simulations they've done, they've tried to inform them as much as they can with all the historical data. So they're not just kind of going off, oh, it looks like it's going to be like that. They're using real data from real life over the years to try and inform the AI, try and inform the simulation in the game as best they can to make it as realistic as possible. And actually, it was very interesting to know that towards the end of the event, I actually got told from a question I had about doing multiple seasons. I wanted to know if things would change a lot and how this simulation works with that. And they say they've gone through that and they've done automated iteration simulations. And they said they actually did the most automated simulations they've ever done on any of their games. So that, you know, obviously Frontier devs, they make a lot of other manager games, some really cool manager games, but out of all of them, the F1 manager game, they've actually done the most automated simulations, because obviously unlike other games like that, F1, you have seasons, you have years to years, and over the years, as we know as F1 fans, things change a lot, so you need to have different outcomes. And I think that it sounded like basically game to game, game save to game save, creator to creator, or me to you at home, we're going to get different outcomes. We're going to get different seasons, different, you know, game saves over the years, which is obviously exactly what we want, and, you know, it keeps it fresh and exciting. But there we have it then. That was our very first look at F1 Manager 2022. Those were all the kind of in-game menu screenshots. We were given a few other screenshots of just the kind of, you know, the artwork of the game, which I'll throw up on screen right now as I'm talking. But that was looking at the screenshots from what we could actually physically see with our own two eyes in this menu, without the kind of other knowledge that I know. And like I said, because all of that info is very specific and quite nerdy, and it is just going to be a case of me talking to you guys about what I was told and heard and saw, because I can't show anything of the gameplay, you know, it wasn't captured or anything like that. So that's why I've made this video as a kind of first video for the day, bit more of a casual style video. And for those of you who really want to just delve into that nitty gritty nerdy stuff and don't mind just sitting there and listening to me ramble on about what I've heard from this event, then get subscribed and check out that second video, because I'm not kidding, it was an hour presentation and there was so much info rattled off that I was trying to jot down basically the entire time, and it's all really exciting. There's so many different parts of this game, with the finances, the manufacturing or designing of parts, the HQs, how the HQs get broken up. So if you want to find out all about that, that'll be in a second video uploaded later this evening, so get subscribed. But hope you guys enjoy that first look. I for one am really liking the overall look of this game. Like I said earlier, the vistas, it's just so, it looks so lovely and polished, and just a good feel. Like, you're going to enjoy hopping on, booting up the game and looking at it, and it's not just going to be all boring, bland screens. It's actually going to be some actual stimulating excitement, and the entire time, it's got an F1 feel to it, because of the fonts, just the style they've made the menus and presented everything. It's just very F1, which is great. So if you have enjoyed this very first look, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Are you rating what we're seeing so far, and are you guys excited? And like I said earlier, if you're hungrier for more in-depth info on every little tab and section on the bottom there of this game, then get subscribed for that second video, where I'll be sitting down and basically rattling through all my notes that I took from this event and letting you guys know every little bit of the game that we'll be able to play, and essentially the gameplay factors, without actually showing you the gameplay, because obviously, like I said, nothing was captured. So stick around for that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this very first look, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.